Hello there, my name is Diana Kolesnik and now we will unveil the top news of recent days. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine Dmytro Kuleba arrived in India for a two-day visit at the invitation of his Indian counterpart Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar.
The Ukrainian-Indian cooperation is important and we will be reinvigorating ties. Building on the dialogue between Volodymyr Zelensky and Narendra Modi, we will pay specific attention to the peace formula. Dmytro Kuleba, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on social network X.
The Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs is visiting India for the first time since 2017. The purpose of the visit is to implement the agreements of the two leaders of the two states, to prepare for the first Global Peace Summit in Switzerland, develop Ukrainian-Indian bilateral relations, trade and international cooperation. In New Delhi, Dmytro Kuleba will hold a number of bilateral negotiations, in particular with the head of the Foreign Ministry of India. The heads of foreign policy departments will hold a meeting of the Ukrainian-Indian Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, Technical, Industrial and Cultural Cooperation. The head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine will also hold a series of meetings with non-governmental organizations, analytical centers and journalists of India. As Dmytro Kuleba said earlier, he would convince Indian leaders to join in supporting Ukraine in resisting Russian aggression. He would emphasize the need to involve India in supporting Ukraine during every meeting and negotiation with Indian high-ranking officials. According to Kuleba, the very fact that he is going to India testifies in favor of finding ways and new opportunities for Ukraine and India to move forward together as two great democracies that share very fundamental approaches to understanding security and the way the world works. The Russians executed at least 32 Ukrainian prisoners of war during the winter, according to UN report. International monitors received reports of executions that took place in 12 separate incidents between December the 1st and February the 29th. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has verified 3 of these incidents in which Russian servicemen executed 7 Ukrainian servicemen hors de combat. In 8 of the reported cases, videos published on social media showed what appears to be Russian servicemen killing Ukrainian POWs who had laid down their weapons and using other captured Ukrainian POWs as human shields. Also, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights confirmed the inhumane treatment of Ukrainian prisoners in Kremlin prisons. 60 Ukrainian prisoners of war who had been recently released from Russian captivity were interviewed. They spent between a few weeks and 22 months in captivity, and many were held in multiple facilities in both occupied territory and the Russian Federation. The POWs provided credible and detailed accounts, consistent with previous conclusions that torture and ill treatment of Ukrainian prisoners in Russian internment is widespread and routine, and that soldiers are held in conditions that are not in line with international humanities law requirements. During these conclusions, the office cross-checked multiple accounts of treatment and conditions in specific facilities, matched them with against previously documented patterns, and corroborated them with direct observations of injuries and health conditions of victims during interviews, information from open sources, and other available documents. By the way, in the reporting period, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights continued to have access to Russian prisoners in Ukrainian captivity, while the office did not have any access to Ukrainian POWs held in Russian captivity. It documented treatment and conditions in Russian captivity through interviews with former Ukrainian POWs who had been released. So we appreciate any help in exchange for POWs. Knowing the meanness of the Kremlin, they definitely will use Ukrainian prisoners for information attacks, as was the case with the downing of Il-76 near Belgorod in January of this year. 41 Nobel laureates called on the world community to strengthen support for Ukraine in repelling the Russian invasion, support the democratic opposition in Russia, and not recognize Vladimir Putin as Russian president. The authors wrote, "The Putin regime has shown that it poses a direct and clear threat to all humanity, and only humanity is able to avoid self-destruction if it adheres to the principles of democracy and international legislation in the field of human rights. The Putin regime has cynically trampled on them. That's why world leaders and all people of goodwill should abandon any illusions about Putin and his criminal regime." The text emphasizes that Navalny and other Russian opposition leaders warned the world about Putin's threat. The text was signed by 16 Nobel laureates in physiology or medicine, 9 laureates in physics, 6 in chemistry, 4 laureates in literature, and 3 laureates in the Peace Prize. Among them are Belarusian Svetlana Alexeyevich and Ukrainian Alexandra Matviichuk. This open letter was also signed by more than 300 other scientists and public figures, and the number is counting, especially since the bloody Putin regime is becoming more and more brutal. Yesterday, they started using aerial bombs on Kharkiv, and on TV, they are already openly declaring that this city must be completely destroyed. Because although they call the cities of the east of Ukraine Russian, they do not feel sorry for them. And before the war, Kharkiv was among the 20 largest cities in Europe, between Barcelona and Milan. And if the war continues at the same pace, it simply will not happen. Just imagine what will happen to a city the size of Munich or Hamburg. And we will allow it to happen. And by we, I mean the democratic world.
Bolstering Ukraine's air defense and expanding the delivery of F-16s to Ukraine are vital tasks. There are no rational explanation for why Patriots, which are plentifully around the world, are still not covering the skies of Kharkiv and other cities and communities under attack by Russian terrorists. Every day we work to provide better protection for our people and Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on social network X.
Already, even scientists around the world are calling on political leaders to speak out with all their might for peace, progress, and human rights. After all, scientific progress is threatened by dictators who suppress intellectual freedom, especially when global cooperation is so important against the backdrop of pandemics, climate change, and the existential threat of weapons of mass destruction. That concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated. Comment, like, and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support really matters. Goodbye.